Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
A rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirt bags off these trees.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Thunder rolls, the fire's in the sky. We've been waiting for this moment all our lives. The darkness gathers, the evil takes its form, but side by side we ride into the storm. They thought they could blind us.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh, and welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose live with you Monday through Friday. I hope everybody is doing well out there and having a fantastic midweek, I guess, if you want to call it that. I had a wrestling tournament tonight. My kids did awesome. It was a great tournament. Got back a little bit late, and now we are live at 8:30 p.m. Central, 9:30 Eastern, and I have to be off by 9:30 my time. So I got 1 hour to go through a lot of stuff, but we can do it. Just take notes and make sure you go back and play back because I'm going to talk fast. Because I just want to point this out. Everything we've been talking about for the last year, identifying the enemy at hand, is now in the public. It is all now right in front of our faces. What's been happening over the last year? Trump, we need arrest, we need to do this. And look, Pam Bondi, you need to get off your fucking ass and do some things, okay? You need to arrest the deep staters. But right now, I'm getting kind of this confirmation that a few months ago when we talked about it, we've been talking about it over the last few months, but that we were saying that they're not going to go after the deep state until the globalists are dealt with. And we're seeing this right now. This is crazy. So a few different things. There it is. I had a post out there. Everybody's like, Josh, what's this post about? Man, can you clarify what you mean by this? Yeah, I will. I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean by this. And it's not necessarily the storm that everybody's thinking about. And by the way, that song right there was Guardians of Truth, Into the Storm. You can find that at redpillsmusic.com. Got to always throw that out there. But look at this. There's a storm coming of the likes that no one has ever seen before. Reporter, what storm, Mr. President? DJT, you'll find out. I have a feeling we're about to find out. FISAgate, Russia, 2020, stolen election, Obama's admin corruption, Hillary and SAPS, Clinton Foundation, crimes against humanity, treason, sedition, TikTok, right? Okay. So people are like, what are you talking about? There is so many layers to this to begin to uncover who the real enemies in the world are, where the power projection actually comes from. But if you've been watching this show over the last year, 2 years, 3 years, you already know this. Tonight's show is called The Systematic Destruction of the Old Guard. Where we heard that before? We heard that from the Q boards. Because on the Q boards, you have to understand who the old guard is. The old guard is the London bankers. This is the banking elite, the central bankers. This is the old European aristocracy. This is the power control structures all throughout Europe who have controlled the United States, who have controlled much of the Middle East, the resources of the world for the longest time. They've even controlled China to some large degree. The one countries that they weren't able to control were countries like Iran and Russia. So we've been talking about how all of 2025 was setting the chessboard against the global elites, setting the chessboard against the globalist bankers. Now we're seeing a complete 180-degree divergence from the European nations, from Canada, away from the United States. We're going to talk about this tonight. A few different things that I wanted to point out, though, is Donald Trump shared a few different posts on his Truth Social today. Interesting enough, one of them was from the 17th letter for John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr.'s account, and the other was from Cue the Storm, obviously, hence the name of the song that we played, Into the Storm, and my talking about this. So right here, Trump on Truth Social from Cue the Storm, any questions? And in the post is, President Trump warned you about China's fingerprint all over our elections and about Biden's FBI ordering intel agencies to destroy evidence tied to China-backed operations to help Joe Biden in 2020. Whistleblowers exposed China ballot printing operations. Tina Peters preserved hard proof of election and voter fraud. It wasn't hidden. It was happening in plain sight. Going into the Dominion, going into the servers scattered through Serbia, Canada, the U.S., Spain, Germany headquarters moved to London. Operation running through DC, the Philippines, Taiwan, while manufacturing quietly done in China under Taiwan label. Do you understand what we're talking about here? If you go back about a month and a half to one of the shows that we did here, I said specifically that British intelligence was directly involved in stealing the 2020 election from Donald Trump. You remember that? British intelligence was direct. So when we're saying, hey, why isn't this information? Why is it more declassified? The reason being is because there's a massive amount of high profile world leaders that are integrated into this mess. They couped Donald Trump, and now Donald Trump is getting his revenge. And what he's doing is he's dismantling their new world order system. And so, excuse me, last night, or was it last night? Yeah, it was last night. Well, 12:47 a.m. on January 20th. So it was last night for me. I posted this bad boy. And I did not know that it was going to have relevance today. But sure and shit, it had massive relevance. The rules-based international order is obsolete. That ideology assumed global institutions could override national power, trade would pacify rivals, narratives would stay centrally managed, and militaries would enforce stability through battlefield doctrine. None of that is true anymore. We are in an era of unrestricted warfare. Financial systems as weapons, supply chains as battlefields, media as psychological operations, law as economic siege, and culture as influence infrastructure. You don't need tanks when you can collapse currencies, fracture societies, and paralyze governments from the inside. This is why the geopolitics looks so chaotic now to people stuck in the 1990s Cold War thinking. It's not chaos. It's system-level competition below the threshold of war. Multipolar world, no referees, no rule books, only power, leverage, and narrative dominance. Trump is the master chess player. The board is set. The moves are already happening. Pay attention to the strategy, not just the noise in between the turns. So Trump today signed the executive order to prevent big corporations from buying up single-family houses. This is something that I've been a staunch supporter of for a very long time. But it says Wall Street and big corporations, but it's really targeting is Blackstone, BlackRock. It's targeting JP Morgan. It's targeting Goldman Sachs. It's targeting Wall Street investments. Why? Because you have to understand that when they get into the housing industry, they are going to treat it just like a derivatives market, and they will eventually extrapolate that market so far beyond its actual net worth, just like they do with every market they get a hold of, that they will collapse it to only where rich and wealthy people will own it. And now you'll enter into the domain of Klaus Schwab in the World Economic Forum, where you'll own nothing and you'll like it. In other words, 2 years ago, we talked about this under the Biden administration when we found out BlackRock, Blackstone, Goldman Sachs, wrong hole. We're all buying up single-family houses. If you remember, post-COVID-19. So post-COVID-19, what you had was over a 432% increase in the amount of foreclosures that were occurring in the United States of America. This came about because of banking deferrals of mortgages that were allotted under the Trump administration. People just weren't able to pay it back 2 or 3 years later. And what happened is you had an accumulated amount of principal that built up, and people were too busy paying off their interest. They couldn't pay off the principal, and this skyrocketed foreclosures. At that same time, you had Blackstone, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, all of them going out and buying entire neighborhoods, 250 houses at a time. You remember when we talked about this? And I said what they are going to do. And also, at the same time, throughout the country, Joe Biden's administration was taking PPP funds, COVID funds, and they were putting various different restrictions on them. Basically, a county would have to go in and change its zoning ordinance in order to receive PPP funds. How did they have to change it, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'll tell you. So typically, counties would have a zoning ordinance where they would have 67% of all of the permits issued for single-family houses, right? And then around 20-something% for multifamily complexes. The Biden administration put a restriction on the PPP funds that these counties would have to reverse that number, basically bring down single-family housing permits to 27% while increasing multifamily housing permits massively up over 60%. And they did this specifically because the bankers knew that they were cornering the market in the real estate markets, right? They were buying up massive hordes of houses across the country. Eventually, they are going to have a monopoly on the housing market. And instead of selling these houses to the direct market, they rent them to the direct market because it's an income stream that they can then leverage on Wall Street. And this brings about the scenario to where you'll never own an American house again. So this is why Donald Trump is working in his administration to go out there and make it easy and simple and affordable for people to buy houses. But we are still in a housing bubble. So keep that in mind. And this is why I think he's coming up with shitty ideas like 50-year mortgages. But I don't think it's going to matter in 10 years in the context of a 50-year mortgage. We can talk about that some other time. Big shout out to Seth Admonson, once more in the fray in the last good fight I'll ever know live. Thanks, Seth. I appreciate that $100 Rumble rant coming in. Okay, so let's get in to the bits of it. Let's get into it. I love this. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's not that it's like being proven right. It's just that you're getting vindication on your research and on kind of what you've been talking about, right? So right here, this right here, Donald Trump, Retruth Today. So at what point are we going to realize the enemy is within? China and Russia are the boogeyman when the real threat is the UN, NATO, and this religion. I put religion in quotes because it's not a religion. It's a cult. Yeah, I went there. UN, NATO, European nations? What? They're the real enemy? Yes, that's the old guard. Donald Trump, again, today. And this is right on the verge of him going to Davos. He's on the plane right now headed to Davos. So shockingly, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, the head of the beast, is currently planning to give away an island, the island of Diego Garcia, the site of a vital U.S. military base and BIOTICS, and to do so for no reason whatsoever. There is no doubt that China and Russia have noticed this act of total weakness. These are international powers who only recognize strength, which is why the United States of America, under my leadership, is now, only after 1 year, respected like never before. The UK giving away extremely important land is an act of great stupidity and is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. Denmark and its European allies have to do the right thing. Thank you for your attention on this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Not only that, is BIOTICS is basically a country that is owned by China through the Belt and Roads Initiative. So why is the UK aligning with China? Just the same reason why Canada, the vassal state of the UK, is aligning with China. So, report from Davos earlier, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink said the global elites have lost the trust of the public. No, Larry, I'm sorry, you're mistaken here. The global elites never had the trust of the public. They had coercion and manipulation over the public through debt slavery. That's what they had. And now people are so fed up because they're watching the system collapse, and you guys are guiding the chaos into a one world centralized government. And we see an alternative through Donald Trump, and we put him in the power, and now we're watching him dismantle your fucking system. This is the fear where it's all coming from. Now, do you remember that post I just told you that I wrote yesterday morning at midnight? Did you see a lot of the headlines that are coming out today? Like this one? I said, what's this talk about a rules-based order all about? China calls for the United States to return to the rule-based trade order. Oh, isn't that interesting? What's Mark Carney have to say about it? Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says the U.S.-led rules-based international order is finished and will not return. What's all this stuff? What did I just say? The rules-based international order is obsolete. What is the rules-based international order? Formed after World War II with the Bretton Woods Agreement, with the formation of the United Nations. It was an agreement through European nations and the United States of America to basically bring about trade, politics, geopolitics, all through international organizations, NGOs, various different think tanks, and have them basically decide what happens next and allow financial institutions to basically run rampant and control everything through the guise of money. Donald Trump has basically began dismantling that entire system. And there is absolute fear in the globalists. Now, Mark Carney, if you guys don't know, Mark Carney is a member of the World Economic Forum. This guy is directly at the UN. He is a globalist London banker. Listen to what he says here. I'm going to pull this up. Let's listen to this. This is important. Listen to what Mark Carney says.
We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful, and American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window. We participated in the rituals, and we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality. This bargain no longer works. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as
I'm gonna pause that right there, okay? I want to go back just a little bit. I want you to hear this part right here, and I'm going to explain what he's actually saying.
Begun using economic integration in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration.
What is global integration? Why is he saying global integration? Global integration is the centralized new world order. It is a one world government. That is what he's talking about. But then listen to what he says next.
But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as well.
Great powers have begun using economic integration as a weapon. What's that great power? Trump.
Weapons. Tariffs as leverage. Financial infrastructure as coercion. Supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination.
Your subordination. They are pissed at Donald Trump because he's not playing their game. The national security strategy that came out last month for Donald Trump's administration, basically said, we're focusing on the Western Hemisphere. We're going to have complete dominance over the Western Hemisphere. Europe, you're insignificant. We really don't care about you. You don't have a growing economy. You got a declining population. Your laws and policies on free speech and immigration are the antithesis of what we believe. You're on your own. Start to learn how to pay for NATO yourself because we're going to be out in 5 years. That is basically what has been said over the last year. And now they are pushing back. They're saying, hey, the United States, if you didn't get that from this, Mark Carney basically just said the United States is now the enemy of the New World Order, of European dominance, of Canada. Hence why Mark Carney was just with Xi Jinping in China and is letting China into Canada. Is there another one? Yeah, we got another one. Of course we got another one. Listen to what Mark Carney says here.
Canada has what the world wants.
No, it doesn't.
We are an energy superpower. We hold vast reserves of critical minerals. We have the most educated population in the world. Our pension funds are amongst the world's largest and most sophisticated investors. In other words, we have capital, talent. We also have a government with immense fiscal capacity to act decisively. And We have the values to which many others aspire. We have a recognition of what's happening and a determination to act accordingly. But we believe that from the fracture, we can build something bigger, better, stronger, more just. That is Canada's path. We choose it openly and confidently, and it is a path wide open to any country willing to take it with us. Thank you very much.
If you don't understand what Mark Carney just said there, he said, Canada is the big boy on the block in the Western Hemisphere. Canada is the energy superpower, the resource superpower. And Canada is going to position themselves to replace the United States in the rule-based order. Hence why China just got invited directly inside. Those were shots fired across the bow, people. Go back last night's show or the night before. Remember when I said, give it a few years, Trump will own Canada. Remember this? I said this the other night. Trump will have Canada. It was last night on last night's show. Now, we know he said that he was going to take Greenland. Now, Trump on True Social, like right after my show, post this one. Greenland, U.S. territory, established 2026. But he also posted this one. And what do you notice about this image? It's an AI rendered image. It's the European elites in front of him. But it's Canada as part of the United States and Venezuela. Remember I told you, Trump's going to take Canada, guys. I'm telling you, Trump is going to take Canada. I know that my Canadian friends out there are like, you're crazy. Shut up. We love Canada. Yeah, we all love Canada. Trump's going to take Canada. Why? Because there's a fucking war coming. Yep. There's a war coming. I've been talking about this for a long time. When I say that there's a storm coming, it's a war, guys. And right now, the global elite are shitting their pants. Right now, the global elite are working around the clock, behind the scenes, and under the surface, covertly, to undermine Donald Trump, to take Donald Trump out of the picture. He is a threat to them. And if they fail in their endeavor, I would say within the next 6 to 12 months to neutralize Donald Trump, there's going to be a war. Absolutely, 100%, there is going to be a war. Now, Trump was asked a question today. He joined Catherine Levitt at the podium. He was asked a question about the 2020 election, how Venezuela and Maduro may be revealing the truth. Listen to this, because I'm going to get into the arrest part here in a second, and I'll make it make sense for you, okay?
Spoke earlier, Mr. President. You've been hearing from allies.
Thank you. Thank you so much, President Trump. Kara Castanova from Lindell TV. Yeah. And you spoke earlier about the 2020 election. Now that Maduro is in U.S. custody and he was criminally charged, has any more information emerged that you could share with us regarding Venezuelan election software and Venezuelan ties to tampering with the 2020 election? And would you consider speaking to Maduro personally in prison in New York to get some answers on Venezuela's involvement with the 2020 election?
No, I don't think I would be doing that. I think my lawyers would be very unhappy if I did. Yeah, they've learned some things. Please.
What happens to the terror threat?
They've learned some things. He had more to say on this. They've learned some things from Maduro. Why? Because Maduro was the CIA contact. He is the one that self-surrendered to the Trump administration. It was all one big plot to get Maduro and extract him out of there. And then they used leverage against Delcy Rodriguez by saying that she was the CIA contact, which then puts her in the crosshairs of the globalists that controlled Venezuela. And voila, we control Venezuela. Pretty huge. Now, Special Presidential Envoy Jared Kushner and Stephen Witkoff met with Kirill Dmitriev, the Russian special envoy, at the World Economic Forum today. I'm going to bring up a Substack article. And the reason I'm bringing up these Substack articles every episode is because they're validating what we're saying here, okay? You got to remember how important all of this actually is, of why you have to take down the head of the beast. You have to cut off the head of the snake prior to taking down the deep state. That is the whole thing. You can't go after the deep state, Obama, Brennan, Clapper, all these guys until you cut off the head of the snake. Look at this one. March 2nd, 2025. Russia-U.S. alliance and why Europe is so afraid of Russia. Okay? They say the geopolitical landscape is shifting and the West's long-standing alliances are being redefined. While Europe portrays Russia as its greatest threat, the true source of fear lies not in military confrontation, but in the ideological and economic resistance Russia poses to the globalist order. European elites, deeply entrenched in the policies of the World Economic Forum, NATO, and the European Union, fear a multipolar world where national sovereignty takes precedence over centralized control. Meanwhile, the U.S. under a Trump-led administration is reconsidering its alliances, recognizing that Russia, rather than Europe, holds the key to counterbalancing China's rise. Right here, number one, European globalism. The real reason for fear. Most European elites align with globalist organizations like the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, and the European Union. Russia is one of the last true nationalist powers resisting the Great Reset and centralized global control. Putin's Russia stands against the World Economic Forum agenda of digital IDs, central bank digital currencies, and mass migration. Europeans fear Russia not because of military power alone, but because of Russia's defiance threatens their entire system. The European Central Bank and IMF need global finance networks to maintain power. Can't have that when Donald Trump's liberating rogue nations and going out there renegotiating trade deals. Russia's independent energy policies and gold-backed currency efforts threaten Western economic dominance. NATO is a globalist enforcer and police force. NATO isn't about defense, it's about control. NATO expanded eastward despite promising Russia it wouldn't, suggesting a deliberate provocation. The Ukraine conflict is engineered to weaken Russia, forcing it into economic and military exhaustion. NATO acts as a military wing of the globalist elite, securing nations under the U.S.-led order. More important, if Russia were to defeat NATO's proxy war in Ukraine, it could embolden other countries like Hungary, Serbia, and even parts of Africa to reject Western control, which has already been happening due to the rise of BRICS. So I go into Alexander Dugin here, a few different things he said, but the Great Reset versus the multipolar world, people. This is what we are talking about. The globalists push for centralized controlled global economy, digital IDs, cashless societies, ESG, open border. Putin's Russia represents an existential threat. Ukraine conflict. You got to remember, I told you the Ukraine conflict can be ended tomorrow if China stopped buying Russian oil under Western sanctions. China is the one funding it. And there's a reason why China has been funding Russia's proxy war in Ukraine. I'll get into that here in a second. Well, actually, let's get into that right now. So why is China funding Russia by these oil deals? Well, number one is they didn't necessarily need to do that. They can buy it directly from OPEC nations. They can buy it from Saudi Arabia. They were getting it from Venezuela and Iran, but primarily they were buying from Russia, which was supporting Russia's wartime effort, which kept Russia in the proxy war in Ukraine. Now, this isn't China trying to incur on the European nations. This was China's plan to become a hyperpower. Their objective was to produce a proxy war in Ukraine with Russia and NATO, with the U.S.-backed forces through NATO and weapons and money flowing into Ukraine. And what happens is you exhaust U.S. military, you exhaust U.S. resources, you exhaust U.S. weapon systems, at the same time exhausting Russian resources, money, and weapon systems. And what happens is two major superpowers decline in superiority to a lower level while China rises up as a hyperpower because now they've got a transfixion on all the global resources, global energy, and now they've developed ASI, which rises them up beyond the United States of America. Plus, the United States of America during this time was supposed to be in basically absolute chaos, civil war, and global economic collapse. So this is kind of what China's plan was, part of their unrestricted warfare doctrine. Now, the new Iron Curtain, Europe is cutting off Russia. Europe fears losing control over global narratives if Russia succeeds. Success for Russia is any outcome that doesn't destroy or collapse the Putin regime. True. The future global showdown. Russia, BRICS, and the end of the EU. Looking at Russia's current global alliances, a multipolar world showdown against the globalist West seems possible. BRICS nations aim to create an alternative financial system free from the US dollar. We're already seeing that being set up. It's not being set up under the BRICS, it's being set up by the Trump administration. If BRICS nations move the gold-backed currency, kind of already happening, we're having basically a gold rehypothecation occurring right now. It would collapse the Western fiat systems controlled by central bank. Russia's partnerships with anti-globalist European leaders, Hungary, Serbia, and Italy, would fracture the EU from within. Africa, Latin America, and parts of Asia are already shifting towards Russian and Chinese influence, rejecting Western neocolonial control. Europe fears Russia. It's not just about war. It's about losing control over the global economy and the political narrative that would eventually lead to the end of the EU. So why are we seeing the Trump-Putin alliance in the United States abandoning Europe, NATO, and the globalist organization? President Trump's American First policies emphasize national sovereignty and a departure from multilateral agreements and institutions that he perceives as compromising U.S. interests, a rules-based order. This perspective aligns with Russian President Putin's criticism of Western globalism and his advocacy for a multipolar world order. Both leaders share skepticism towards supranational entities like the European Union and NATO. This ideological convergence has led to a pragmatic partnership between the U.S. and Russia, as both administrations seek to counterbalance the influence of globalist policies. Both Trump and Putin perceive China's rising economic and military power as a strategic challenge. Economic competition. China's rapid technological advancements and its Belt and Roads Initiative are viewed as attempts to expand its global influence, potentially at the expense of both U.S. and Russian interests. China's assertiveness in the South China Sea and its modernization of military capabilities raise concerns about regional stability and the balance of power. President Trump has adopted a more confrontational stance towards China, including implementing tariffs and strengthening alliances with Indo-Pacific nations. Not only that, he's taken out two of their greatest allies. Iran, which we'll talk about here in a second, and Venezuela has basically been wiped off the map for Chinese influence. So we're talking about strategic geopolitical reconsiderations. President Trump's approach to foreign policy includes redefining traditional alliances and exploring new partnerships based on current geopolitical realities. Obviously, the reassessment of NATO. And then engagement with Russia. By engaging Russia, the Trump administration aims to create a counterbalance to China's influence, potentially driving a wedge between Chinese-Russian partnerships and reshaping global power dynamics. President Trump's anti-globalist stance and alignment with Russia are driven by dangerous ideological shifts presented by globalist institutions and has strategic considerations, particularly concerning perceived threat posed by China's rise. A Trump-Putin alignment is a hedge against Chinese homogeny. China's 100-year plan is a long-term strategy of the Chinese Communist Party to achieve global dominance by the centennial of the People's Republic of China in 2049. China's goals align with what has been described as a century-long strategy to surpass the West, led by the CCP. Europe is a liability, not an asset in a war with China. We're talking about this with Trump's national security strategy. He basically says is that Europe has no military that is any benefit to us. They have nothing that's a benefit to us. They have declining GDP, declining population. They have mass immigration coming into their country. They don't believe in free speech, and their economies are shit. They can't provide anything for us of value. Europe is weak militarily. Europe is dependent on China economically. We're seeing this right now with the global elites opening the door to China in Europe, with Mark Carney over in Canada opening the door to Xi Jinping. This is a counter action against Trump and Venezuela, Trump and Iran, of which we talked about, and also a counterbalance by the European nations against Trump and Greenland. So this is a long article. You can read it on my Substack, redpillproject.substack.com. Just type in Russia in the search bar, and you should be able to find it out there. But this is where we're at, people. Okay? Now, Donald Trump was asked today, how far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland? And his answer, you'll find out. And it's not just Greenland. It's Iran it's not just Greenland, it's Canada as well. I said by the end of the Trump administration, at the very least, we will have Greenland and we will have the northern Canadian land masses. Okay? So Alaska will stretch out across all of that area to Greenland. That will be owned by the United States. I'm telling you, it doesn't seem plausible right now unless there's a war that breaks out, but it's coming. That war is coming. Whether it's going to be fought economically, whether it's going to be fought geopolitically, That war is happening right now. The kinetic warfare, it's going to happen. I truly do believe it's going to happen. I hope it doesn't, but I think that we're pretty spot on. Scott Ritter, former UN's weapons inspector, basically persecuted by the Bush administration. This was quite interesting. I'm going to let him kind of, it's a minute and 43 seconds.
I mean, Lindsey Graham has admitted this was something that was cooked up in Mar-a-Lago. I mean, Lindsey Graham has admitted it. This is something that Netanyahu and Trump cooked up when Netanyahu was visiting Mar-a-Lago. This was all planned. There's extensive planning going on between the Mossad, the CIA, British intelligence, Dutch intelligence, and every intelligence agency in the world that has been lined up against the Iranians. And yet the United States didn't pull the trigger until it was too late. And I just have to sit there and go, Trump knew what he was doing. I mean, it seems to me that Trump set up Lindsey Graham, set up Netanyahu, set them all up because they shot their bolt. The Mossad network that was used is gone, finished. I mean, the Israelis panicked in the end. When they lost communication with them, they tried to shove in a whole bunch of new Starlink, communication kits. And the Iranians were just sitting there waiting for them to come in and go, thank you very much, thank you very much. Because the Iranians broke the code, got in there. Thanks to the help of Russia, by the way. So it's all over. That entire network's gone. It took decades to build that network up. That it's gone. So Graham knows what happened. There is no capacity to, replicate the opportunity that was lost. Now he's trying to be nice and say it's not Donald Trump's fault. It's 100% Donald Trump's fault. And you have to ask yourself, was this deliberate? Is it just incompetence, which I can also accept, or was this deliberate, a setup so that Netanyahu and Graham and everybody else stops talking to him about overthrowing the Iranian regime because they no longer have the tools to do so?
Very interesting assessment, isn't it? Very similar to a lot of the things that we've been talking about. Trump allowed the actors to believe they were fully aligned with the objective at Mar-a-Lago. He came to an agreement with Netanyahu. He let them plan, activate networks, and position assets. In other words, he let the operation reach the point of maximum exposure. And then the very last moment, he didn't pull the trigger. Iran allegedly was alerted by Russia with Trump's knowledge, moved in to dismantle the entire covert network. Assets were rolled up. Communications were compromised. The entire infrastructure was destroyed. This is interesting because immediately after Donald Trump pulled the rug on a engagement of Iran, a military action on Iran, Lindsey Graham immediately flew to Israel and met with Netanyahu. I believe what Scott Ritter is saying is actually very, very true. At the same time, I don't believe it was Trump's incompetence that stopped this. I believe it was Trump's plan. Now, number one, Reza Pahlavi. Reza Pahlavi is the Mossad stooge that they want to install in Iran as its leadership. Reza Pahlavi is massively tied not only to the Mossad, but the MI6 and British intelligence. Remember, it's the British that put the Shah in the first place, right? So, excuse me. Man, these sodas are extra carbonated tonight. So, would Trump want to put a British intelligence asset in control of Iran, one of the largest energy reservoirs in the Middle East? No, absolutely not. Would Trump want to be looked at and viewed at as a tyrant on the global state by bombing the shit out of a sovereign nation who did nothing to him? No. But see, this was the setup of Donald Trump that they wanted to enact. They wanted Donald Trump to bomb the shit out of Iran. Israel gets its way. The British intelligence gets their man in play in Iran. Then Iranian control flows over back to Europe. Trump understands this. So what's he do? He pulls the plug at the last minute. The people rise up and begin to overthrow the Iranian government. Let that happen. I already told you that it's going to be various different forces, Kurdish forces, that we're going to operate. But then today we learned that Kurdish forces are now rising up against the United States in the Middle East and Iraq because they feel abandoned by the Trump administration. So what type of rug pull just happened here? Well, we know back channels are open. And I believe that back channels were utilized for negotiation. We've seen Iran communicate with Donald Trump through proxy and shoot missiles which don't hit targets. Donald Trump does the same thing. Precision strikes, warns them 24 hours prior. In other words, and I'm just going to throw this out there. What if Iran is already controlled in the multipolar framework by Trump or Putin? Just throwing that out there. And now there's a battle of control over that asset. I just throwing it out there. I don't know. It's an interesting and very complex situation. But I don't believe Donald Trump did this through complacency or incompetence. I think he did this strategically. And I think that we'll learn the strategy here in the near future. But also, it rug pulls Israel. It pulls Israel's whole force and might out from under their feet, that now they can't just go and topple Iran. This is why Bibi Netanyahu came back and said, well, we don't have enough missiles to defend ourselves if this happens, so we're calling it off. This is why you saw 3 different reasons why that attack was called off. But Donald Trump said it was my decision. Ultimately, it was my decision. So pretty interesting there. Now, with that being said, there's a few other things that were happening in the news. I'm not going to get into the Minnesota stuff tonight, but I'm going to get into the economic stuff tonight. That's where you see the red, right? It's the economic stuff. The reason being is because this is all interrelated and intercorrelated. If you're in my crypto mastermind, if you read any of my economic articles that I post on my Substack, you'll know that I said markets are going to decline. Markets are going to go down. Bitcoin's going to go down to like the mid 70,000s, low 80,000s. And it's going to go down pretty fast. The market's going to decline. We're going to have a market correction, not a reset or a collapse. But, and I've been talking about this for a while. I said a few months ago that winter is coming. Now, why was winter coming? Well, because of Japan, because of what's going on in Japan's bond market. Japan's long-term bond yields climbed to their highest level in 25 years. Well, today they collapsed. That's why the markets are dying off, because the leverage over the Japanese yen are basically getting liquidated. And this is crashing a lot of the markets. It's just a market correction for collateralized assets. The markets will go back up, but understand that this provides opportunity for the globalists. This provides opportunities for the Davos bros to use market manipulation towards their advantage, to continue the downtrend of the markets and pull the rug on the entire system as a weapon against Donald Trump, to show that Donald Trump's economic policies outside of the rules-based order don't work. And I think that this could potentially be one of the weapons that they will use here in the coming weeks, if not months, to do exactly that. Is that they're going to try to pull the rug on Donald Trump's progress, of which they've already started doing. Because when we start to look at everything that's going on, we are witnessing the systematic destruction of the old guard, the old British Empire, the empirical control models that we thought died out after World War II were really centralized within institutions, within non-government organizations, and within an infrastructure that existed outside of the people's control, out of a global elite infrastructure. This is where it gets interesting. That global order, unelected, this unelected bureaucracy, has controlled the influence of every Western nation over the course of the last 100 years. So when I say that, and we start talking about the Obama administration, the 16-year plan, you got to remember the 16-year plan, 8 years of Barack Obama, 8 years of Hillary Clinton, was to bring the United States of America into a one-world government, to collapse the U.S. Constitution, the United States of America, to depopulate the country, invade it with China, give China massive amounts of farmland, and then integrate the rest of the world into a one-world government. That was it. That was the 16-year plan. It was going to happen after nuclear war with Russia and after a biological attack. The head of the snake is the globalists. The deep state is simply just a little player down over here that was doing the work here in the United States to subvert our country, our Constitution. So why isn't Donald Trump prosecuting the deep state right now? He doesn't need to. Not at this moment. I think the bigger threat right now is collapsing the global order, is collapsing the old guard, the systematic destruction of the old guard, dismantling their system, dismantling these old alliances, removing them from the integrity of our system. That way we're no longer dependent upon them, that the things that they do no longer matter on how we operate. Once those ties are severed, now you utilize the leverage of the prosecution of the deep state to win the next election, to win the midterms, to win the 2028 presidential election. Exactly what I was saying just the other day. So this is my theory on kind of how this is going to roll out. Now, with everything that's happening in the economic markets, I said winter was coming. $150 billion was wiped out from the crypto market cap today. We had the S&P lose all of its gains. $1.3 trillion wiped out from the U.S. stock market today. Huge. Now, in the context of crypto, what these markets crashes or corrections actually provide for you is they provide for you opportunity to get back into the market. And I think that you should. If you're not into the markets in the sense of cryptocurrency and where it's going, that new financial system, that new financial infrastructure we're talking about, it is cryptocurrency, people. Okay? Number one thing is if you're new to cryptocurrency, you want to check it out, redpills.tv/crypto course. Go take my crypto course and learn, get your introduction to cryptocurrency right there, redpills.tv/crypto course. Also, the link is in the description, I think. If not, it's at shop.redpills.tv, but redpills.tv/crypto course. Okay. The next thing, if you're on Rumble, check out the Rumble wallet if you haven't already. I'm going to go ahead and do this one, but please go ahead and download this if you haven't. Wallet.rumble.com. They can freeze your accounts, shut off your cards, lock you out of your own money overnight. Banks don't protect you. They control you. That's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing the Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can own Tether Gold, real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you can get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. This isn't paper gold. It isn't an IOU. This is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. That's power. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet peer-to-peer and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. The wallet is yours forever. Wallet.rumble.com. And then all you have to do is just search creators and you can find me on there, guys. And if you wanted to send us even some Tethered Gold or whatever it is, you can absolutely do that. So where do we stand? Well, right now, this is where we are at. Trump's speech at Davos, I'm telling you, is going to be something along the lines of the world does not belong to globalists. It belongs to patriots. He's going to talk about the multipolar framework. He's going to talk about what he's done, his accomplishments in the United States of America, and how he's reshaped the global order through actually going out there and serving his country and his people. The globalists, you're going to hear more and more rhetoric of anti-Americanism, anti-Trumpism coming from people like Mertz and Macron, Steimer, all of these guys. Why? Right now, I believe that they are strategizing with China to try to take down Donald Trump through at the very least, economic warfare or through maybe some type of covert action. But I think it's ultimately going to lead to some type of kinetic engagement. Now, with that being said, I think Canada is going to become a major hotspot for all of this. I think that Trump's focus over the course of probably the next 60 days, because I believe Greenland's deal is going to be probably completed within the next 20 days, that Trump will have Greenland within the next 20 days, and his focus is going to immediately shift to Canada. And he's going to start talking about Canada is going to be the 51st state. Canada's going to be the 51st state. Mark Carney's going to come to the White House. And what you're going to see is either a deal be made or Donald Trump start producing rhetoric that, hey, we're going to get it one way or another. And with the idea that Canada just brought in China, this is a direct national security threat to the United States of America. So understand that Donald Trump is dismantling the old guard. He's dismantling a system that was designed to enslave us, a system that was designed to depopulate the world, to centralize control, power, wealth, to remove prosperity. And over the course of 1 year, he's completely rug pulled that entire system, and they're pissed. So buckle up. There's a storm coming. All right, guys, I got to get on to DEF CON. I will be back with you tomorrow, so get ready for that. I'll see you guys on DEF CON 0 here in just a little while on Badlands Media, about 10 minutes from now. So much love, respect, God bless, take care, have a great night. I will see you guys here in a little bit. Take care.
There was a time when our children stood tall, hands on their hearts, one voice for all. There was a time when honor had won, when the flag was a symbol, not a debate. There was a time when our history was known, with pride in the rules that made us our own. There was a time, respect for the brave, for those who bled, for the lives they gave. Now the homeland burns to silent war. Truth is twisted, we can't ignore. Voice still calls, we the people will not fall. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone, patriots rise. We are one, land of the free, home of the brave. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time when truth was clear, when the media served, not ruled by fear. There was a time when leaders stood fast, guarding the people, defending the past. Now corruption wears a crown, lies are fed to tear us down. But Q said watch, and Q said see. The silent war will set us free. From the front lines, soldiers stare, wondering if we're still there. Their blood, their hope, their sacrifice will not be sold for a life's prize. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, the veil undone, patriots rise. We are one, land of the free, home freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. Or we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. There was a time is near, the great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone, patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave, no more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time. There was a time. Now is the time. Do it.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"